Hello, everybody. If anyone can close the door, please. Thank you. Just in time. We will start now. We are a bit late on the agenda, but we will try to take the best of the time we have together here. The session is called Optimizing IMI's Funding Scheme. That's the purpose of this session. The main objective is to gather feedback from applicants' experience, you or people that tried or want to try, and also optimizing the design of IMI calls for proposals. That's the main objective. So this is not a listened session, it's a working session. You are here to share your views, to talk, to participate. So please, feel free to participate. Don't hesitate. I know the recording is on. You might be, I don't know, timid, but anyway, feel free to share with us your ideas. But to put the context in the session, we will have very good speakers here with me in the table. We will have Magali Pano, Legal Manager of IMI Office. We will have Magda Gan, Scientific Project Manager, also of IMI Program Office. We will have Catherine Brett, External Relation Manager of IMI Office also, and Mia Kivi-Pelto, Professor at Karolinska Institute, and also partner at EPAD IMI projects. And also, we will be not enough to deliver what we have without Elmar, that will be the rapporteur, and he's going to take note of what you say and what we gathered during this session. So I will not get more of the time. I will let Magali Pano start with some introduction. Everything is going to be brief to leave you some time to discuss about participation and funding rules and also IPR rules. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marta. So yes, the idea would be to give you very quickly an overview of this participation, funding, and IP rules. So in terms of participation, I think you all know that IMI is now part of the Edge 2020 program. So roughly the IMI rules are similar to Edge 2020, but with some adaptation because it was really necessary to consider the peculiarity of the public-private partnership in the health sector, especially in terms of entity eligible for funding, and to make sure that we have sufficient flexibility in terms of intellectual property. This was mentioned this morning by Richard Bergstrom, that we have a strong IP policy, and this strong IP policy is also based on its flexibility. So in terms of participation, our objective is to make sure that we may attract all the stakeholders that may bring something in IMI that can put an added value in the IMI strategic objective. So any illegal entity, regardless its place of establishment, may participate in IMI project. There is no distinction whether you are based in Europe or outside Europe. That's very important to consider this element. And we have a clear example with the Ebola Plus call, which was launched end of last year. So, and we can see that it was very easy to have on board entity not only based in Europe, but also in Africa and also in US. So that's important. But it doesn't mean that all these legal entities are eligible for IMI funding. And in terms of eligibility, we have some basic rules in the sense that the academic institution, the non-for-profit research organization, the small and medium-sized enterprise, the patient organization. We have seen also this morning that patient organization is largely part of the IMI program 1 and 2, and we would like to continue this objective, but also international organization. But on the top of the small and medium-sized enterprise, it has been also agreed with the member state and with the strong support of the European Commission and the pharma industry, not only to have as eligible for funding the small and medium-sized enterprise, but what we call the mid-sized enterprise with a capital balance sheet of less than 500 million euros. So that's very, very important. It means that we can attract more and more entities on board of IMI project. For the other entity established outside Europe, it may be decided on a case-by-case basis when the participation is deemed essential. This was notably the case in the Ebola Plus program, which was launched, I already mentioned, end of last year, and this was facilitated through the entire process. In terms of finance, because of course it's very nice to know that you are more than welcome to participate, but it's also important to know how much you may get. And clearly the idea was to simplify the process. We are fully in line with the 2020, and this will also facilitate reducing the recurrent error by only one rate per all across the program. It means that for research and innovation action, the participants that are eligible for funding will get up to 100% of their eligible cost. And concerning the overrate, we have only one model, a flat rate of 25% of the direct eligible cost. So clearly, simplification has been introduced in H2020 and fully reported in the IMI 2 rules. And it's important to know because it means that we will better attract, notably the small and medium-sized enterprise. We complained in the past not receiving 100% because they had to participate with their own resources, and it was difficult for them to invest a certain amount of money in this big IMI project. So now, fully aligned with H2020, we support 100% of the eligible cost in research and innovation project. In terms of IP, so it was mentioned, as I said this morning, we have a solid IP which is based on this flexibility. And this flexibility is a key element of the success of IMI in the past and is a key element of success for the future. Of course, we have to make sure that we may attract all the stakeholders. So this flexibility allows to consider the interest of all the different stakeholders, from the academic world, from the industry world, from the regulatory authorities, but also from the patient organization. And our objective is really to facilitate the circulation of the knowledge, to facilitate the access to the information generated by the participant within IMI project, to facilitate the dissemination of the information. Also because not only the partner in IMI project may make use of this result, but also external parties should be in a position. And we have clear examples, especially the European Lead Factory project which was presented this morning, facilitate the access to the result of their project by third party under certain conditions that have been defined, but which are clearly known and publicized on the European Lead Factory website. And this is clearly how this IP policy has been built. On the other side, we have to make sure that we reward the innovation generated by any of the participants within an IMI project. That's the reason why for further research use, for exploitation, some compensation might be foreseen within the consortium. But it's up to each consortium to decide how they will organize this. And this is also the reason why this flexibility is really key, because each consortium, depending on the project objective, may define the most appropriate rules that will be applicable. Thank you. I will leave the floor to Magda.
Thank you. Magda will explain us what is the call process from call definition to grant award, and also some tips on writing successful proposals. Thank you.
So I will go also very briefly to save time for the discussion. This complicated scheme shows you the project life cycle. And the typical project life cycle that's been most popular, most utilized in IMI is the two-stage process. So we always start with idea generation, and this has roots, of course, in IMI strategic research agenda, which more broadly defines what will be the topic, the disease areas, the problems that IMI is supposed to address. More granularity you can find in our annual work plans, which then describe what could be the possible topics coming out for a given year. And then, of course, each individual topic text then provides you detailed information on particular topics. We have also this new feature in IMI 2 of strategic governance groups for at least the 6 priority areas at IMI, for example, SGG, diabetes and metabolic disorders, SGG, neurodegeneration, infectious diseases, and so on. And those groups comprise of industrial partners who are interested in the respective disease areas to have a more strategic approach of defining the agenda and producing the topics for those given areas. So largely the topic come from industry, also within influence from the outside, from EMA, for example, as it was mentioned earlier today, but also anybody from the scientific community can propose topics. They will be considered, they might be taken on board as long as some pharmaceutical partners are willing to invest in that space. Those topics goes through consultation within our state representative group, our scientific committee, and then they are published. After that, we look for applications from applicant consortia, which typically are multi-partner groups. On average, there is around 20 partners, sometimes more, sometimes less. And typically you see many different stakeholders, such as academics, hospitals, patient organizations, regulators, small and medium enterprises, and so on. The best consortium is chosen using independent experts in the first stage evaluation based on the short proposal. Then that consortium is invited to join with the industrial partners who originally were interested in the given call. Together they come up with the full proposal, which is much longer, that provides more detail on the implementation of the project, which is again evaluated with independent experts. But then there is no competition at this stage. The competition is in fact in stage 1. In stage 2 we look more about implementation, making sure that the contributions from all the different partners, especially public and private, are well described and complementary. And finally, after this successful evaluation, the project has time for negotiation, where they discuss and define their consortium agreement and sign grant agreement. After that, they receive the funding and the project starts. So the timelines for such process is typically 8 months from the submission of the full proposal to the grant award, and typically the negotiation take about 3 months for the grant signature. So in terms of evaluation criteria, we are fully aligned with Horizon 2020. The standard criteria are excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. There is a number of sub-criteria that follow under each of those, but you can find them on our website in the call documents if you are interested. So in the first stage, typically excellence and impact are evaluated, and then in the second stage, all 3 criteria are taken into account. We typically use help of independent experts, at least 3. This is in the rules, but typically we have 5 to 8 experts, who are scientists either from academia or from small and medium enterprises with relevant expertise. And also what's important is the proposals are evaluated as they are. We do not look at them as what they could be on their potential. So it's very important to write a very good and explicit proposal. So that brings me to some tips based on our previous experience. Of course, this might sound trivial to you, but sometimes it's not taken into account. You need to really read all the relevant materials. All the information is there. Sometimes it seems like there's lots of documents, but all of them are there for a reason, so please read them. And understand and respect the rules of IMI. If you have any doubt, we are always there to help you if you have any questions. In terms of the proposal itself, it's very important that the proposal is in scope, that it addresses all of the objectives. So not only partially, not only just one element, but it needs to address all of the relevant objectives, and it needs to, the partnership of the consortium need to have all the relevant expertise to carry out relevant projects. What's important to highlight is impact, because this is one of the criteria. And also don't forget about the ethical considerations, because it's very important carrying out various types of research, and also it's very important and might have impact on the timelines. And last but not least, remember to finalize and submit your proposal. Very often we see people submitting their proposals at the very last minute, seconds sometimes. And our system requires to finalize and then submit. And some people finalize, but then they forget to click the next button. And it's very unfortunate. So please make sure you give yourself enough time to do that. And lastly, this is something that's very tricky, and we realize that. Many potential applicants reach out to IMI because they're looking for partners. They are asking us how to find a consortium to join. And IMI is not in a position to help you. This is your legwork, so to speak. You need to network. We provide you some tools. There's a partner search tool on IMI website where you can register and advertise your interest. But there's also other. There is German-based partner search tool and also Fit for Health. So I suggest that you network as much as possible, use any meetings, any opportunities to find potential partners. And I think that's it from me. I can.
Nice, Catherine. Yeah. Now, thank you. Now you are going to tell us how to get involved in IMI or how to help participants to get involved, and also some very brief introduction of the call that is coming, the fifth call.
Yeah. Can I just have the
Yes.
clicker, please? Great. So in the next few slides, I will just briefly tell you how to get involved in IMI, and then, yes, introduce you to the forthcoming call topics. So the most simple way to get involved in an IMI project is just by becoming a project partner. Magda and Magali have already given you a lot of pointers on how to do that. What you need to do if you want to do that is really look out for new IMI calls for proposals. We advertise them well in advance on our website, via our newsletter, via Twitter, via LinkedIn, our states representatives group, so people like Marta also advertise it via their networks. And that should give you plenty of time to really read and understand the core documents. We also run information sessions and webinars. And of course, you do have to submit your proposal. Another way of getting involved in IMI is as an associated partner. This is a new thing under IMI 2. So you're probably aware that in IMI 1, half of the funding came from FPA companies who put their own resources into the projects, and that funding was matched by the European Commission's funding. Under IMI 2, other organisations can also contribute in this way. And we saw an example earlier in the form of JDRF. They are putting money into the diabetes project under IMI 2, and that money will be matched. Obviously, this isn't an option for anyone. You do need to have your own research funds to put into it. But you can see there briefly the rules of how that works. If you're interested in that, I would suggest you get in touch with us and we can discuss it in more detail, because it's quite a political decision for your organisation, obviously. Patients are really an important part of IMI. I think we've seen that a lot today, and we've seen some discussions on it. Patient organisations, generally speaking, are eligible for IMI funding if they meet the other basic eligibility criteria. If you don't want to be a full project partner, you can also get involved in projects by becoming a part of the advisory boards. Most of our projects have governance bodies, ethics boards, advisory boards. Some have special bodies dedicated to getting the patient input on their work. You can get involved in those, and that's another way for you to get the patient's voice into the project. And if you're a researcher and you're thinking, why should I get patients involved? How can they help me? Well, on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see some different ways that patients can help you in your research, the expertise they can provide. So, what have we got coming up? We have IMI 2 Call 5, even though IMI 2 has only been going a year, we are already up to Call 5. You can see for the patients among you, there are 2 topics there with patients in the title. We have a lot on Alzheimer's disease, so Mia should be very happy. And we have one on diabetic kidney disease. The draft topic text is on the IMI website. We should be launching it in just a few weeks. And we will have webinars, so keep an eye on the IMI website and you'll be able to find out how to get involved in all of those. And if you're interested in those topics, then network with the people you meet today. This is a great opportunity to network, to meet potential project partners. Here you can see some of the links and some of our communication channels. There's no rocket science there. It's the website, it's the newsletter, Twitter, LinkedIn. They're very simple, they're accessible to everybody. Follow us, join us, link up with us, and also feedback to us as well. It's not just a one-way outward going thing, communication. We want to hear back from you as well. So if you have any questions, and especially when it comes to reading the core documents, We know they're long and sometimes complex. If you have any questions about anything you read, whether it's about the topics, whether it's about our rules and procedures, do ask us. It's our job to help you and to help you understand our rules. So this is where you can contact us. We have the IMI Programme Office. We have a special help desk for IP queries, which is Magali sitting over there. And you can also contact your local contact points. There's the States Representatives Group, which is chaired by Marta. We have representatives in most of the member states and associated countries. And there are also the national contact points for health. They also know a lot about IMI. Many of the NCPs are also SRG members as well. So on that, I will say thank you very much and hand back to Marta.
Thank you very much for this brief introduction on the rules and how to participate and how to get involved, not only as applicants, but in another role. Now Mia will tell us very brief description of the project we are involved in and also some personal experience on the process of being a successful partner.
Thank you so much. It's very nice to be here, and indeed I'm planning to tell a little bit about our project, how we got involved, what are my experiences so far. So first, my background. I'm professor in geriatric medicine at KI, Karolinska Institute Center for Alzheimer Research and Aging Research Center. I'm also working at the memory clinic at the hospital where I'm director of research and education. And my research interest has always been the prevention, early diagnosis and treatment of dementia and AD, Alzheimer's disease. And you surely know all that it's a very huge challenge nowadays in the aging societies. It has been counted that by 2050 there will be nearly 3 times more patients with Alzheimer's disease. Every 4 seconds someone gets the diagnosis of AD in the world. And what we are lacking is really effective treatment. We have symptomatic treatments, but last more than 10 years there have been no new drugs on the market. And because Alzheimer's disease is not only a human and medical problem, it's also a very expensive disease, there has been more and more political interest for the disease. You have maybe heard about the G8 Dementia Summit about dementia. And recently, WHO had the first ministerial meeting about global actions in AD and dementia. So it's very clear that there are high-level attempts to find new solutions. And actually, in the J8 meeting, the goal was to find a disease-modifying drug or cure by 2025. We can ask if it's realistic, if we are able to do that, but this as a background, I really think that IMI calls for Alzheimer's disease are very actual and very timely because of this background. And it's very clear, both for the scientific persons, persons in the academia and persons in the pharma industry, that we need to do something in a new way. We can't only repeat the errors we have been doing the last 10 years. We need to have a new perspective. And here I would say the IMI e-part is giving something novel. What is IMI e-part? It has nothing to do with iPad. I have got the question earlier. e-part means European Prevention of Alzheimer's Dementia Consortium. And shortly, what we are aiming to do there is really to create a novel environment to test several interventions to prevent Alzheimer's dementia and try to understand better the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. So I would call that it's really an e-part platform or e-part machinery operating across Europe and providing a standing double-blind AD proof of concept adaptive trial. Who are then involved in the e-part? We are totally 36 partners from academia and industry, so it's really a big initiative, I would say. And we are, as said, academia, industry, but also SMEs. We have SMEs from research management, statistical innovation, and even biotech companies. And there are also patient organizations involved. Alzheimer Europe is one organization who is involved. And we have 63 million euros for next 5 years between these different partners. Just shortly to give a little bit hint for you what is so special in EPAD and why we believe so much that we can do something different when we have this new consortia. In EPAD, we are aiming to have something called EPAD register with more than 24,000 persons. And here we are building on the infrastructure that is already existing in Europe, and also for the previous calls and initiatives that have been there. From EPAD register, 6,000 persons will be recruited for EPAD cohorts, and these are persons who have biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease who do not yet have dementia. This has been one of the failures in the past, that the trials have been targeting persons who already have too advanced disease, who already have dementia. And now we want to target much earlier phases of the disease. And from those 6,000 persons, 1,500 will be recruited for the EPAD proof of concept adaptive trial. So there is a readiness cohorts who can always give the patients or subjects for the proof of concept trial. And what is specific in the trial, I was mentioning the word adaptive design. And if you think the traditional way of doing the trial, you have one placebo arm, and then you test one target, one drug against this one placebo arm. And it takes a lot of time, and it's also very expensive. In adaptive design, you can use the same placebo arm. You can share it between different drugs. You can use drug A, B, and C, and still using only one placebo arm. We also aim to use intermediate endpoints, phenotypes using biomarkers that will help us to make the go, no-go decision, whether to go for a more long-term trial using cognitive outcome. So it's much easier to kill a drug that is not working or put more efforts on the drug that is probably working. And it's also more ethical because only one arm will get this placebo. So for the patient perspective, this is also, we feel, the way to go. So that's just shortly the idea. And we also know that this same model has been working well in cancer field. You know, cancer field has much more drugs available, and that's of course our hope that we can do the same in the AD field. Just a few more issues what I would like to highlight, giving our thinking the successful application, and what I also liked a lot in the EPAD. We have many work packages, and one of them is the ethical issues. And I think that was also mentioned that is very important. And you can also think the early phases of Alzheimer's disease, when we are not yet so sure if the subject will really develop Alzheimer's disease dementia. It's very important that we are aware of the ethical issues. And that's why we wanted to have a whole work package dedicated for these issues. We have also one work package about sustainability. And I think that's also important, because if we now put so much effort to have this machine for 5 years, we of course would like it to be there for many, many years in the future. And that's also something what I think is very important. And finally, we have a work package for dissemination. And we were talking about the implementation. So it's the innovative design, but we also want, if we find something interesting, that can be implemented very quickly. So maybe you have understood that I'm very enthusiastic for this new project. Now we just started January 2015. I have been working with Alzheimer's trials more than 10 years, and as said, we have had no new drugs. So this feels really like a new innovative way of doing the trials. And especially I have enjoyed the open attitude. We are persons from the pharma industry, from academia, from patient organizations. We are sitting around the same table and openly discussing the challenges what we have, and that has been really, really nice experience. So I'm very optimistic for that. Of course, there will be challenges, but so far this has been very nice, very unique experience. I'm very happy to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I think that you have a view, well, aerial view, because it has been brief, but they can extend any information that you need. And now it's your time. This is the Stakeholders Forum. It's not an info day. So you can take part as stakeholders in this session. I just remember what is the objective. Is to optimize the design of IMI calls and to get your feedback on what are the barriers and what are your proposed solutions to this barrier if it is. If it is a success and you want to share your approach, you can also do it. So now it's your turn. We have the first question here.
Ladies first? Or?
No. You are first.
Thank you. Simon Dresser. I'm from UCB, from the so-called medium or large companies, FPI companies. So same question. First, the word to the public organization here, or the SMEs, which are very important as well. No, I look at the title. The title is How to Optimize the Funding Scheme, and the call is important as well. It's part of it. So I have just a few questions from the angle of the large companies. We contribute, and this could be addressed to the European Commission as well, to the rapporteur, Mr. Helmar Nimesgern, Deputy Head of the Research Innovation. So just simply and this is based on benchmarks. How are other PPPs working in the world, first? How are, from a funding standpoint, the other GTIs under H2020 working? And my last comment before introducing the 4 questions is this, I guess, will be for IMI 3. And I'm not sure that I will still be active in IMI at that time, but we will see. I would like, but it's a marvelous program, and that's nice. So 4 points. 1, the matching model, 50-50. So just questioning whether in a later stage we could say, well, let's have a little bit more flexibility and have a range from, for the industry, 40%, 60%, or 60, 40, just is there room for flexibility just to improve, and improve what? At least the contribution of the FPI companies, just the first question. Second, we know that FPI companies are there not to get funding. This is not the point. We access network. We are very happy to work under IMI on the long term to build something all together for Europe, for the growth. That's one thing. But we sometimes are working with finance people, and they just say, well, you know, you just contribute, and you don't get any cash out of it. And so looking at other models, like in Germany, there is a big Neuro Alliance program where there is a matching, 50-50, and there is a small incentive for large companies to contribute and tell to their financial guy, when on our contribution we have a bonus of 10%. This 10% difference makes a difference. Just think about procurement practices where people and large teams are engaged just to reduce the cost by 5%. So just that was point 2. Point 3, milestone-based approaches. We know, and this is linked to the call, and the call process, making sure that the public money is used in the most efficient way, could justify that, and this is for IMI 3 again, that we make sure that we engage private and public money if we reach a certain milestone after 2 years, for example. Another aspect. The last one is the scale of the consortia. We need to find a balance between reaching large capacities, reaching enough critical mass, and operationally work all those reports, paying the money to all the public organizations. If we are 40, sometimes I raise the question whether we could optimize, this is the topic, optimize the model by allowing, but I think this is the case. So those are my 4 questions. But again, it's a great initiative, and I invite everybody to join IMI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We start very strong with the questions. That's good, because that's room for answers. We will have 4 questions. Some of them might be answered by Elmar, I don't know, or you are rapporteur, you can also. But
I don't know
the first one,
whether I'm supposed to answer questions. I'm here supposed to take some
so
notes. But I think obviously, Simon, you have raised some very relevant and interesting points. Just very briefly, I think you pointed out that some of them may not really be current existing framework. But as far as benchmarking towards other such partnerships, when we launched IMI, we did or before we launched IMI 2, we did do careful analysis, and in Europe we didn't find so much. You know, this was like in 2012. Obviously, time moves on, so there may now be other models. I think it's always good to learn from other models. As far as other JTIs, just as a reminder, we have obviously other types of partnerships alongside IMI, for example, on fuel cells and hydrogen. We have Le Bourget, a big air show in Paris just launched, so it's useful to remind us of Clean Sky, and so on. We have some others. But of course, each industry sector is different, and so we have somewhat different arrangements, but those were done on purpose. If that is no longer considered to be appropriate, well, then if we do, again, it's something to look at. And of course, as far as project size is concerned, I think that is a very relevant comment to everybody. That is, I mean, we heard that EPAD is a large consortium, but it's nowhere written that you must have a large consortium. In some cases, it's probably better to have a small consortium. And the rules for participation of Horizon 2020 fully apply, which say you need to have 3 legal entities from 3 different countries. So the minimum is 3 participants. Well, even in small projects that we fund directly from our program, projects with 3 partners is really rare, I may say, but it is entirely normal to have projects with maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And that may be fine.
Yeah. And just an addition from my point of view, that I agree that it depends on the purpose of the research, what we want to do. For EPAD, as said, we want to have 1,500 subjects in the trials, and we want to test many compounds, and that's why we need many partners, but it totally depends what we want to do.
You want to add something?
Well, I can comment perhaps on your question about the matching. I think a solution could be, well, it is in fact that the matching is on the program level, so not necessarily each project have to have perfect 50-50 matching, as long as on the program level we have that, because that was the idea from the start. And then about your milestone-based approach, this is to some extent implemented already under IMI 2, using the mechanism of restricted call. So there are several calls who in fact had the same idea. There is let's say, a project planned for 5 years, assuming it reaches a certain milestone, a large one. In this case, there will be additional funding both from public and private, and the consortium will have an extended scope and timelines, can open for new participants, but doesn't have to, can remain with within the partnership that was established. So there is possibilities to find solutions to those things already within the existing framework.
And maybe one more element on the milestone-based approach. We have perhaps also to think differently how the topics are designed, because currently they were very broad, big project, long-term project, and to achieve this milestone approach, we should really reflect on a smaller project or project step by step, where perhaps based on this restricted call, we will launch call after call, instead of having one big call with a big amount of money available from the public side, but also from the private side, and with large objective, wide objective, which what we have currently at IMI.
Yeah, and a last clarification to start with the last question. The scale of the consortia is the applicant consortia that decides. And usually what is a trend is if it's 40 million, is 40 partners. If it's 30 million, at least there is a scale of that size, usually. And we have to break with that. As a state representative group representing Spain, and also as a chair of the state representative group, also work on recommendations, like you have to be the ones that have to contribute. You don't have to increase the number just because you need a big consortium, a very happy and big family. You just put in the partner sheet what you need for the project. Also, we have to work on the description of the topics, maybe, because maybe we ask for many items in the list of capacities of the applicant consortium. Maybe we send the message that they have to have every partner for every capacity. Maybe that's misunderstood, the way they read the call topic. That could be. We can work on both ideas, maybe. But at least we recommend that the partners, the number of partners, is not the maximum. It's just the minimum, 3. And you add whatever you need to fulfill the requirements of the call. That's it. And also, as the milestone approach, just to clarify, I know everybody knows that, but if a project has a failure, it is stopped in IMI or in any other funding scheme in the European arena. So if projects continue, it's because there is an alternative that is accepted or an amendment. Maybe you can elaborate, but if the project goes on, it's because there is good research and good work on that. Just to clarify, I know that nobody's thinking anything else, but just to make sure that because of the commitment of the industry, we don't continue the project just because of the commitment. If something fails, it is analyzed, and in the office they are very keen on looking how the projects are going, and there are external reviews if needed, so everything goes in line with what is foreseen in projects, just to clarify for everybody to know. And also looking at other programs, for example, in the SRG, the State Representative Group, we present what do at national level to give an example of what can be done with partnership, public-private partnership in other arenas. So improvement can be done continuously. We don't have to wait till IMI 3 to improve. We can get some improvement now. Okay.
Hi,
Somebody?
sorry. I got the microphone.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Claire Scantleberry from the European Biotechnology Network, and I wanted to comment back, in fact, agree with some of the previous statements that have been coming out regarding optimizing structure of the call process, because it's nice to have smaller numbers of large consortia applying, but from my own particular perspective, we help small companies very much in trying to drive development of collaborative partnerships. And when you have a large-scale budget for an IMI Stage 1 application, you are always going to require a large consortium. It's just the way of things. And so many small companies just will not even consider becoming part of it. And if they do, they can't really drive the scientific development in any meaningful way, or the exploitation. And this is our own direct experience from being in a successful IMI project, the Enable project, but also being part of 3 or 4 unsuccessful Stage 1 applications. And there is a practical way that we could engage small companies more effectively in the process by using the structure that Enable actually had, because it's one IMI project, but it came from 2 subcalls at Stage 1. And so where you have really large projects with many different skills required, many different outcomes, you could break those into smaller subcalls at Stage 1. So you're not looking at a consortium of 20 or 25 organizations. You're making it more achievable for smaller, faster mover, innovative consortia to apply to a subcall that they would be really specialist at being part of. You'll engage a lot more small companies, a lot more developing research groups in that way, and they don't need to have the really seriously big proposal writing departments that you usually see inside the organizations that lead such consortia. It would be a practical way of doing it without radically changing the way that IMI works. And it would be a really nice thing to do for the small companies.
Yes, you're fully right. Enable is the right example, but I think European Factory is also a very good example if you can comment, because this is a different scheme to engage smaller players. Because in the case of Enable, they launch additional call during the project implementation, while in European Lead Factory, there is a rewarding scheme to engage smaller player, but not necessarily being full partner of the consortium. So I leave it to you to explain further.
Yeah, exactly. So I was about to build on these comments, indeed, from the experience from the Lead Factory, and really recommend that future calls also are considered to build in such a scheme where actually the consortium that runs the screening center is only 5 partners, but is open for applications of many additional groups, including biotechs, to bring in programs that we then run, but are owned by those external partners, thereby involving a large community within Europe of either SMEs or academic groups that can benefit from this project while retaining it small and professional in its way, in its execution. And I think there's many more calls that could work along such a line that would really be beneficial in terms of efficiency of running a program without having to manage 30 partners with very disparate technologies or capabilities, while maintaining a wide open area for people to join in and be part of it. I would really advocate to do that. I think we are running that experiment now in the Leeds factory. It took a while before the wider community recognized the opportunity, but since we are up and running now for a while, I think we see a much increased inflow of interest, projects, and again, I think it's a very good way of getting everybody involved.
Yes, and also perhaps to add on this, in the Open Lead Factory, the third parties, so the smaller player, are also rewarded for the innovation, and the asset of this company is always protected. So they will have access to the result generated, they will give access, but it's only access, and their asset will be still protected. So we still consider the business interest of the smaller player in this configuration.
Hi, I just have a practical question. I'm not sure I understood you correctly. Do you mean that when we are financed to 100%, the support in kind disappeared?
No. In the case of, in all the IMI project, we have 2 categories of participants. The participants receiving IMI funding and those not receiving IMI funding, and most of them are the FPI company participating in kind contribution or cash contribution. So, and those entities eligible for funding will receive 100% of their eligible cost, while the other company, the FPI company as an example, will participate to the project with their own resources. And we will recognize, we will acknowledge the contribution of this pharmaceutical company in each of the IMI projects. So you have on one side partner receiving public funding, and on the other side, even if I dislike this to have 2 sides like they are completely in 2 different positions, but so, and on the other side, this pharmaceutical company bringing their resources into the project and matching the public funding.
Because in our case, we are the Belgian Scientific Institute of Public Health, and we participate to several different IMI projects, but we receive a certain amount of money, and on the top of that, we have support in kind to bring to the project.
Yeah, in IMI 1, that's true that the academic partner were receiving 75% of their cost. And one of the huge change between IMI 1 and IMI 2, thanks to H2020, is that now the academic partner will get 100% of their direct eligible cost. So that's a great improvement for facilitating the participation of the academic organization, the research organization, the small and medium-sized enterprise, and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Nasser from INSERM. I had a question towards the implication of industry out of EFPIA. You were mentioning this a little bit before. Did you go through with it? I'm thinking of the medical device industry, the imaging industry. Are there any discussion going on?
I can answer. There's already Zeiss on board of one of the, not projects yet, because this is in implementation. And as far as we know, there's a number of companies from various industries joining FPIA as partners of FPIA. So I think that there is close to 10 different companies, but I don't know the names off the top of my head right now. So there is, in fact, two mechanisms by which different industry or associated partners can join. Directly by association to IMI, like GDRF did, or partnering with FPIA, and then they are part of the bigger pocket of the budget, because for associated partners, IMI only has 200 million. So it's a little bit limited budget. So therefore, the companies that want to join have a choice. They can either partner with FPIA directly or with IMI.
I again may briefly point out that indeed from Commission side, certainly in the run-up to IMI 2, we have had quite a bit of discussion with all kinds of industries that haven't led to formal partnerships. But it's not because we haven't discussed with people. Obviously, IMI, as Simon has pointed out, is a particular model that was chosen for a reason at the time. But we have this opportunity, and it is already being used. And I mean, we must not forget, we are just, it was launched just about 11 months ago. So we still are obviously have a bit of time to fully even further develop IMI 2 in the current framework. So we don't need to put all our hope on some future thing that may or may not come, but we really have a great tool that we can work on in the next bunch of years.
In the area of knowledge management, we have currently discussion with big companies, especially to cover the big data program. Orange has expressed its willingness, Microsoft, Google. So we are currently discussing with them, and also together with the participating FPIA company, how to optimize the participation of each in this big program.
So, Patricia Londoño Hayes from Sanofi Pasteur. Our organization is a big champion of IMI. As you know, we contribute 30% of the FPIA contribution to the vaccine project. One of the challenges we are facing is that we are a global company with a global footprint. Our investment in R&D is major in Europe, but is also spread around the world, in North America, and increasingly in Asia. For us, the 30% cap in our contribution, having to come from Europe, is a hindrance rather than a help. If we were able to express, if you like, our contribution to other areas of the world, that will be extremely helpful. And eventually will help the program as well, because we will be able to contribute more than we contribute today.
So
I can...
yeah, perhaps it would be great if you also comment from the SRG perspective. Yeah. So just to make sure that everybody has understood what we are talking about. We are talking about in-kind contribution from the industrial partner, but outside Europe. So it means that non-EU in-kind contribution. So with resources which are used and not necessarily based in Europe, but outside. Maybe in US, it may be in India, it may be in Japan. And for sure, the way the pharmaceutical sector is organized, you are globalized, and you might have resources, valuable expertise that does not exist in Europe and that only exists outside Europe, and you would like to bring this expertise in Europe. So compared to IMI 1, we have now a global cap, which is fixed as a maximum of 30% of the total program concerning the in-kind contribution. And here you are questioning this cap because you consider that this may limit your implication, your commitment in the IMI program. So it may be perhaps also important. We fully understand this has been already extensively discussed, and for sure, when an expertise exists outside Europe and will bring value to the European research community, scientific community, of course it has to be considered. But on the other hand, IMI is a European initiative with the objective to boost the European competitiveness. So that's the reason why this cap of 13%, 30% has been fixed. And this has been extensively discussed, and I think it's very important also to have the view of the member state, because it has not only been discussed between the Commission and FPA, but also at the member state level.
Yeah. You want to...
And just if, Magali, just to address that point, I totally understand that aspect, the investment is in Europe, but if you think about investment on R&D, eventually that could come back to manufacturing facilities in Europe that we have in Europe. That will definitely balance the investment in Asia or North America. I take your point.
Okay, just very briefly, the session will not stop at 5 o'clock. It will stop at 5:15, so don't run now. You will have time for some other questions, just for you to know, because people might start leaving the session. As for the participation outside Europe, as already said, it has been extensively discussed, and we have to consider that this is a European initiative that also wants to build on research and innovation industry in Europe. So the limit was established to allow collaboration, but not to permit or allow that everything is going from outside Europe. We are also the countries facing a situation in which many research and development institutions from industry are leaving Europe and going elsewhere. That's not what we like, honestly speaking. And IMI, it is also an incentive for you to stay, because there is a program to help you to develop your research and innovation. So IMI, I think, it's also an incentive to keep the research and development in Europe. Not only the after work, after the drug is approved, then you produce it in Europe. That's okay, that's good, but it's not enough for us. So the limit was established for that reason and many other reasons, and in my opinion is okay as it is. And it was agreed like that, so there were a lot of discussions, I have to say. I don't know if anyone else in the table. So we will continue with another question. There is...
During this morning and the first part of the afternoon before this workshop session for the partnership, we essentially heard about big pharma for private companies. But if you refer to the new era in the personalized medicine based on sequence genome, it's mandatory to involve big data and smart data as well. Either big companies or SMEs, there are room for companies. Are they eligible? Clearly, yes or no? The big data companies and smart data companies.
So if they follow the definition of either small and medium-sized enterprise or mid-sized enterprise, of course they are eligible for funding. And if we are talking about big company, they may be part of the IMI program, either as an FPA partners in research, joining the private consortium through FPA, or by becoming an associated partner.
Why do you make the difference between big pharma and big data?
We do not make any difference. They may be...
With that answer, it's enough for me. Thank you.
Can you speak loudly, because we can't hear you properly?
Okay. I'm happy to hear that you don't make any difference between big pharma and big data companies.
No, indeed. There's no difference. They may be part of IMI and they may contribute with in-kind contribution. But I initially answered because you questioned whether they are eligible for funding, whether they can receive public fund. And they may receive public fund if they fall under one of the definitions of the entity eligible for funding. If we are talking about big company, they will be treated similarly to the way big pharma companies are participating in IMI program.
It's perfect.
Some other question here? Yes?
I also worked on a previous IMI project where we had some problems regarding the way, I don't know if other EFPIA partners had that problem, regarding the proper way to declare the cost for their samples, because they provided samples to a consortium, and for a study that was not carried out within the project. And so if I understood correctly, for IMI projects, you can only charge the cost for collecting and shipping the samples if this is done on the duration of the project. Is there any other way to assign value to samples provided by EFPIA partners?
Sorry. So yeah, you're right. We had this question, and we had also on this topic extensive discussion on how to value and consider the value of this sample as part of the in-kind contribution. And it has been agreed, even within IMI 1, to consider the value of the sample, but not only to the sample, but also to the compound. And here again, European Lead Factory is a great example, because the value of the compound has been fixed from the beginning in the call topic text. So it has been agreed to give a value to the sample that will be made available, that will be bring into the project, and this will be considered as in-kind contribution. Of course, we have to follow a certain process, so this can be done at any time. So that's the reason why it was agreed within IMI 1, in order to consider the value of this compound, to have this done from the definition of the call text, because this is approved, this is endorsed by our governing board. Concerning IMI 2, it has been simplified once again. Why? First, because there is a disconnection between how the in-kind contribution will be considered compared to how we will reimburse the participant eligible for funding. And the general principle for the industrial partner is to follow their accounting principle. So if the value of the sample, the cell line, the compound is recorded, and at the end auditable, so is recorded in your accounts, this may be considered as part of the in-kind contribution. And we will not only consider the cost for collecting the sample, for analyzing the sample, for using the sample.
I have a small follow-up question for that. Also for data, is it correct in IMI? Sorry, Magali. Am I correct that in IMI 2, I mean data that has been generated before the project start? If an FPI company wants to use this as in-kind commitment or contribution, how do you value that?
Yeah.
Is it commercial value? Is it?
The answer is the same of what Magali just said. If it's part of usual accounting practices, then it's a cost that you may declare. If it's not part of the usual accounting practices, otherwise, you cannot declare it in IMI. So it's one set of rules. It's enshrined in the IMI legislation, and it's very clear there.
Thanks.
Some other question here? Okay.
A quick, provocative question. Are there any lessons learned from the Ebola call in terms of speed that could be applied to future calls?
Perhaps, Martha, you would like also to comment, because
Yeah.
we consulted the state representative group to draw up some lesson learned on the Ebola plus call. Of course, what I can already say is that we have really to optimize all the processes that exist in H2020. So using single stage call when it is necessary to achieve the objective of one topic, to use a two-stage call in a more usual topic, but also to use a fast-track procedure, so having short-term timeline, but perhaps to adapt this timeline depending once again on the objective of the call, and last but not least, to make sure that we have systematically an adequate communication towards the scientific community.
Yeah. Speed is very good, but we need to be good at the process also. If you launch a single stage call with a very short timeline, there are many problems arise, because this call is not like Horizon 2020 calls, in which all the applicant consortia usually applies together. In here there is a part of the consortia that already commit some in-kind and in-cash commitment for the project, and then the rest is what is open for the call. What happened with the Ebola call was that was so short, in my understanding, that there were no time to have a proper discussion between the academic and applicant partners and the industry. Another problem is that when you open a call in which one partner is necessary, then it's not an open call. You need to convince that partner to join a consortia. If it's written in the call, there is another difficulty here, because we want open and competitive calls with peer review. In these two stages call, there is a peer review in the first stage in which the expert select the best applicant consortia, and then it's joined with the industry, and then there is another peer review that assesses that the process is okay and the proposal is excellent and everything is okay. When we do things in a speedy time, then there were a lot of complaints from the applicant, for at least in my country, because it was difficult to reach the right person on the right time, and also when you find out who you had to call, then the consortia was already full. There were no space for new, even if you were excellent and your ideas were really excellent. So there were a lot of problems, and we have to work together in a better process to allow a quicker call if needed, but with all the guarantees that everything is going to be okay and everyone has the same rights to have their say in the call. So the call, like it was I think that it was a trial, let's call it, and we have to improve on what we had in that call. Yes?
This lessons learned document, when is that coming out?
So we got the SRG feedback. Normally we should have circulated it to the Commission, but I will check again, Elmar. So just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, we already had an internal process for transparency, in which the IMI office asked the countries, because we are in direct contact with applicants, what we thought, what were the views from the applicant arena, and we sent some comments, and we have to discuss now on that process and how to improve it if it's needed in the future to do something like that. We are run out of time now. If there is something very urgent, just no, then.
So just to be on the safe side, no question from the web streaming? Okay, thank you very much.
No. So just keep in mind that these speakers are in the coffee room now, probably, and later, and they have emails that were shown in the presentation, so you can contact them anyway, and the state representative group and the representatives are also published in the website, so we are at your help in any.
That's very important, to take advantage of the participation of members from the state representative group today. Marta is the chair of this group, but there are many other participants from Sweden, Denmark, Poland, Germany, and so on. So please be in contact with them, not only today, but also in the coming days.
Yeah. And also, you can send your comments and your feedback as stakeholders any time of the year. You don't have to wait till this event. You can send comments to the states and also to IMI office or the Commission even directly, because if you don't tell us what is wrong or what can be improved, we cannot improve it. So you are part of IMI, you are part of the governance, and you have to use this right and this opportunity. Thank you very much.